I stepped out of my Honda Civic, handing the keys to the valet outside Bellini's. The same polished smile he offered to the owners of Mercedes and BMWs flickered across his face. Inside, the restaurant sparkled. Crystal glasses caught the soft evening light, casting fractured rainbows across crisp white tablecloths. My mother had insisted on this place for their 40th anniversary dinner. Of course she had. I checked my watch, 6:58 p.m. The reservation was for 7, which meant my sister Vanessa had probably arrived 20 minutes early, precisely as planned. Vanessa doesn't do fashionably late. She arrives ahead of time to secure her throne to control the narrative. The maitre d' gave my simple black dress a once-over, his eyes lingering a beat too long on the scuff mark on my sensible heels. I offered a thin smile. Name, he asked, tone all polite disinterest. Lily, I'm with the anniversary party. Recognition flickered across his face. Ah, the Johnson celebration. Your sister mentioned you might be joining us. Might. The word landed like a pebble in my stomach, rippling out into a wave of cold. He led me through the dining room, past tables where conversations paused just long enough for diners to note my passage. My mother had chosen a private alcove near the back, separated by an ornate wooden screen. I could hear Vanessa's laughter. Bright, polished, perfectly pitched for maximum charm. As I rounded the screen, there she was, resplendent in a deep crimson designer dress, the kind that cost more than my last month's rent. She was gesturing elegantly, her French manicured hands slicing through the air as she regaled our cousins with what I was sure was a carefully curated story. Lily? My mother's voice carried a touch too much surprise. We were beginning to wonder. I glanced at my watch. 7:02 p.m. Vanessa didn't so much as flick her eyes in my direction, her story continuing uninterrupted. The only empty chair was at the far end of the table, tucked beside an enormous potted fern that obscured half the view of the room. How fitting. My father rose halfway from his seat, an automatic, outdated courtesy, but sank back down as soon as he realized it was just me. He waved a hand vaguely at the gathered faces. You remember everyone, of course. I nodded, slipping into my assigned exile behind the fern. A young man I vaguely recognized from some long-forgotten family reunion leaned over his brow, furrowing. Sorry, what did you say your name was? Lily Johnson. His brow relaxed, understanding dawning. Oh, are you Vanessa's sister? Before I could reply, the servers appeared, gliding into place like a choreographed ballet, each with a champagne flute in hand. White-gloved fingers passed them around the table with the precision of an orchestra's string section. My fingers brushed the thick, cream-colored envelope in my purse, my intended offering for tonight. 5 years of scrimping and saving $60,000 tucked away with the hope of finally proving I was worth noticing. A peace offering, a final attempt to bridge the gap. Vanessa stood, her glass raised, the room instinctively leaning toward her like flowers turning to the sun. Her diamond bracelet caught the light as she began. To Michael and Ellen Johnson, she said, her voice carrying perfectly. Thank you for raising the most incredible only child anyone could ask for. The silence that followed wasn't the sharp, stunned kind. No one gasped. No one glanced my way. No one corrected her. My parents beamed, raising their glasses in acknowledgement. A single chuckle rippled from the far end of the table, quickly stifled. Memories flickered through my mind. Birthday parties where my name was forgotten, graduation ceremonies where my seat remained empty. The countless moments I had silently waited for my turn in the spotlight, only to be reminded that Vanessa had already claimed it. The envelope in my purse felt suddenly unbearably heavy. I watched Vanessa, radiant and poised, her laughter weaving through the low murmur of resumed conversation. My hand tightened around the strap of my purse, my pulse a quiet, steady drumbeat. No one saw me. No one ever did. And yet, for the first time in my life, the invisibility felt like armor instead of a wound. I took a slow, deep breath, steadying myself. Maybe it was time to rewrite the narrative, to finally claim my own story. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of clinking glasses, polite laughter, and the gentle hum of well-practiced conversations. I watched Vanessa hold court, her voice lilting through anecdotes about business deals, high-profile clients, and exclusive vacations. It was like watching a polished Instagram reel. Perfectly curated, flawlessly executed, and utterly exhausting. My parents leaned into every word, eyes, bright heads nodding in time like loyal disciples. They rarely broke their focus, as if Vanessa's every syllable held the secret to eternal youth. I felt my chest tighten each time they turned their gaze to her pride, shining in their eyes like diamonds. Occasionally, my father would shift his attention, his gaze drifting past me as if my presence was more atmospheric than substantial. I was a shadow, a set piece in Vanessa's carefully constructed stage. The envelope in my purse grew heavier with each passing minute, its weight pressing against my side like a dull, accusing whisper. As the main course arrived, artfully plated racks of lamb and delicate sea bass, I found myself reflecting on the first time I noticed my own invisibility. I was 6, huddled on the edge of a crowded couch during a family Christmas party. Vanessa, already graceful at 10, had performed a choreographed ballet routine in front of the tree, her red velvet dress swirling around her like a cloud. The applause had been thunderous, my parents rushing to shower her with kisses and praises. I had tried to show my parents the crayon drawing I had spent hours on. A clumsy but heartfelt portrait of our family. I remember standing there, my small hands shaking slightly as I extended the paper toward them. They glanced at it, ruffled my hair absent-mindedly, and returned their attention to Vanessa's triumphant twirl. The drawing had ended up crumpled beneath the coffee table, forgotten among discarded wrapping paper and cookie crumbs. Even then, I had known my place. The supporting character, the forgotten background in Vanessa's spotlight. The clinking of glasses pulled me back to the present. Vanessa had risen again, signaling another toast. This time, she aimed her words directly at our parents, her voice taking on that carefully curated tone, sincere yet calculated. To the couple who taught me everything, she said, her diamond bracelet catching the candlelight in a way that seemed almost rehearsed. Mom, Dad, thank you for being my biggest cheerleaders, my greatest inspirations. Here's to 40 years of love, laughter, and unforgettable memories. The guests responded with a wave of appreciative murmurs, their glasses raised in synchronized tribute. My own flute remained untouched, the bubbles fizzing against the side like nervous whispers. It was then that I caught Aunt Claire's eye from across the table. She was one of the few who hadn't fallen completely under Vanessa's spell. She offered me a small, sympathetic smile, her eyes crinkling at the corners in that warm, familiar way that had comforted me through countless forgotten birthdays and missed recitals. I managed a tight smile in return, silently thanking her for the small but meaningful acknowledgement. Dessert arrived, a decadent tiramisu that felt too rich, too indulgent for the tightness in my throat. My parents were locked in another round of doting conversation with Vanessa, completely absorbed in her retelling of a recent charity gala where she had single-handedly raised thousands. I felt my pulse quicken, my fingers inching toward my purse again, the envelope still tucked securely inside. I had planned this moment for months, a final gesture of gratitude, a symbolic bridge over the gap that had grown between us. I imagined their surprised faces as they opened the thick, cream-colored paper, revealing the $60,000 I had painstakingly saved over the past 5 years. A peace offering, a plea to be seen. But as I watched my parents lean closer to Vanessa, their faces alight with pure, unfiltered pride, a cold realization settled over me. They didn't want my peace. They had never been waiting for me to prove my worth. In their eyes, I had never been more than an extra, a supporting player in the story of their perfect only child. The thought landed like a stone, heavy and undeniable. My grip tightened around the strap of my purse, my breath coming in shallow, uneven waves. I glanced at Aunt Claire again, her expression tinged with something that felt like understanding. She knew. She had always known. I took a slow, steady breath, feeling the weight of my unspoken words gather in my chest. I might be invisible to them, but I didn't have to stay that way. For the first time in my life, I felt the stirrings of something stronger than longing, deeper than disappointment. It felt like resolve, sharp and clear, cutting through the fog of years spent in the shadows. Maybe I didn't need their recognition. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for a spotlight that would never turn my way. Maybe it was time to rewrite my own story. The car ride home felt like a slow-motion escape. The warm glow of Bellinis receded into the rearview mirror as I wound my way through the dimly lit streets, the sound of the engine a steady, comforting hum beneath my thoughts. The envelope still sat in my purse untouched. I had come to that dinner prepared to offer a final grand gesture. A symbol of my gratitude and love, the $60,000 that had taken me half a decade to save. A last-ditch attempt to prove that I was more than just a shadow, a supporting character in the story of Vanessa's perfect life. But as I replayed the evening in my mind, the glances past me, the dismissive smiles, the ease with which they erased my existence, I felt my grip on the steering wheel tighten. It was like a switch had flipped, the slow burn of resentment finally igniting into something sharper, something more dangerous. The streetlights flashed past, casting long, ghostly shadows across the dashboard. My phone vibrated in the cup holder, my mother's face flashing on the screen. I let it ring, the sharp trill slicing through the quiet, a stark contrast to the soft, indulgent music that had filled the restaurant. I pulled into my apartment's parking lot, the gravel crunching beneath the tires, a satisfying grounding sound. My breath fogged in the cool night air as I stepped out the reality of my life. Small, quiet, unnoticed, settling around me like an old familiar coat. Inside, I dropped my purse on the entryway table, the thick envelope sliding partway out the corner, catching the light. I stared at it for a long moment, my pulse a slow, heavy thud in my ears. This was it. The final symbol of my misplaced hope, my desperate need to be seen. But tonight had shattered that illusion. I walked to the small framed family photo on my bookshelf, the only one I had kept. It was a Christmas shot taken when I was about 8. Vanessa stood front and center, her smile bright, her dress a vivid, shimmering red. My parents flanked her, their faces lit with the kind of adoration that only ever seemed to find its way to her. I was in the background, partially obscured by the tree, my small hand resting awkwardly on the arm of the couch, my smile tentative, uncertain. Without thinking, I picked up the frame, my thumb tracing the glass over my own face. The small, uncertain smile, the hesitant, hopeful eyes. I set the frame down with a sharper than intended clink, the glass rattling in protest. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my own long-buried anger rise like a bitter tide. I wasn't that little girl anymore, the one waiting on the sidelines for a moment that would never come. I had built my own life, found my own strength, scraped together my own victories. And I wasn't about to let another decade slip by in the shadow of someone else's spotlight. The next morning, I took the envelope from my purse and laid it flat on the kitchen counter. I stared at it, the weight of my unspoken words pressing down on my chest. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of something fierce, something unapologetically mine. I flipped open my laptop, the screen flickering to life with a soft hum. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, my mind whirling through the possibilities. I had spent so long trying to earn their approval, so long trying to force my way into a narrative that had never been written for me. But maybe it was time to stop asking for a seat at their table. Maybe it was time to build my own. I clicked into my banking app, the balance still staring back at me like a silent, patient question. $60,000. Years of careful saving, missed vacations, and quiet, solitary nights in a cramped apartment. I moved my cursor to the transfer button, my pulse a steady drumbeat in my ears. 1 click. 2. The numbers blurred for a moment before refocusing, the balance dropping to 0 with a soft, satisfying ping. I leaned back, a slow, incredulous smile spreading across my face. I had done it. I had chosen myself for the first time in a long, long time. I closed the laptop, my heartbeat slowly settling into a calmer, more certain rhythm. In that moment, I felt the first tentative stirrings of freedom. The quiet, exhilarating realization that I didn't need their spotlight to shine. I took the now empty envelope and with a small, satisfied flick of my wrist, tossed it into the trash. The thin paper landed with a soft whisper, the final, delicate echo of years spent trying to be seen. I turned away from the trash can, my eyes settling on the framed family photo still sitting on the bookshelf. I crossed the room, lifted it from the shelf, and carefully slid the back panel off. I pulled the photo free, my fingers trembling slightly, and carefully tore myself out of the frame. The small, uncertain figure finally separated from the bright, perfect center. I smoothed the torn edges, my breath coming in slow, steady waves, as I slid the now empty frame back onto the shelf. For the first time in years, the space felt like mine. The next few days felt strangely lighter, as if the act of cutting myself free from my family's unspoken script had loosened a long-held knot in my chest. I found myself smiling at small things. The warm, nutty scent of my morning coffee, the soft hum of rain against my window, the satisfying click of my apartment door locking behind me as I left for work. But freedom, I quickly learned, doesn't come without its echoes. My phone rang constantly. My mother's number flashing on the screen every few hours, her increasingly frantic voicemails piling up like storm clouds. I let them sit unanswered, my finger hovering over the delete button more often than not. Then came the messages from Vanessa. Short, clipped texts, each one a small, sharp jab wrapped in a thin layer of forced civility. "Hey, are you okay? Mom's worried. You missed Dad's golf tournament. He noticed. Are you mad? If this is about the dinner, you should really just talk to them." Each message stung a little less than the last, the dull ache gradually transforming into a kind of hardened indifference. I had given them decades of my silence, standing quietly in Vanessa's shadow, accepting my role as the forgotten, the overlooked. But not anymore. I poured my energy into my work, taking on more freelance projects, updating my portfolio, even reaching out to old clients for testimonials. If I was going to build a life that felt like mine, I needed to do it fully without the weight of old disappointments dragging me down. My Aunt Claire called one evening, her voice a welcome warmth in the quiet of my small kitchen. "Hey, Lily," she said, her tone a careful blend of concern and affection. "I haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay?" I hesitated, the familiar pull of self-censorship flaring up before I could stop it. I had spent so long hiding my hurt, carefully curating my words to avoid the sharp edges of family disappointment. But this time I let the truth slip through. "Actually, Aunt Claire," I said, my voice steadier than I expected, "I'm not okay. I'm tired of being invisible." There was a long, thoughtful pause on the other end of the line, the soft crackle of static filling the space between us. "I thought something felt off at the anniversary dinner," she said, finally, her voice tinged with a quiet, unspoken understanding. "I saw the way they looked right through you. It wasn't right." My chest tightened, a small, grateful warmth blooming there. Someone had seen me, even if just for a moment. "Thanks, Claire." I managed my throat tight. I don't think I can keep doing this. Pretending like everything's fine, like I don't exist." Her soft sigh crackled through the line, the sound like a gentle, reassuring hug. "You know," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "you deserve better. You always have. You just have to let yourself believe it." I closed my eyes, letting the weight of her words settle over me like a warm blanket. "Thanks," I whispered, my fingers tightening around the phone. I needed to hear that. For the first time in weeks, I felt a small, stubborn flicker of hope. The faint, cautious beginnings of self-worth pushing through the cracks of my carefully constructed defenses. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself slowly reclaiming pieces of my own story. I updated my website, filling it with bright, unapologetically bold designs, the kind of work I had always been too nervous to showcase, afraid of drawing too much attention, of standing out. I said yes to new projects, accepted invitations to networking events, even joined a local design group that met monthly at a cozy, book-filled cafe downtown. And through it all, the calls from my family continued their messages, a steady, predictable drumbeat in the background of my newfound freedom. Then one gray, rainy Saturday, as I was sorting through old sketchbooks and design samples, my phone buzzed with a new message. I glanced at the screen, my heart sinking slightly as Vanessa's name popped up. But this time it wasn't a polite, vaguely concerned check-in. "Mom and Dad are really upset, Lily. They think you've cut them off." If this is some kind of statement, it's childish. Just call them. Fix this. I stared at the screen, my pulse a slow, steady thud in my ears. I could almost hear her voice, that carefully controlled tone she used when she wanted to appear concerned but couldn't quite hide the underlying note of superiority. I took a deep breath, my thumb hovering over the reply button for a long, agonizing moment. Then, with a slow, deliberate exhale, I locked the phone, the screen going dark with a soft, satisfying click. No, I wasn't going back. I had spent too long swallowing my own words, making myself small to fit the narrow, uncomfortable mold my family had cast for me. I set the phone down on the counter, the cool glass smooth beneath my fingertips. This was my life, my story. And I wasn't about to let someone else write the ending. The morning air was crisp and cool, the faint smell of autumn leaves drifting in through my cracked kitchen window. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the warmth spread through my chest as I watched the gray sky stretch over the city. It had been weeks since I last spoke to my parents. Weeks of unanswered calls, ignored texts, and missed voicemails. My world felt smaller, quieter, but also more mine. The silence, once a heavy, suffocating thing, had transformed into a kind of protective cocoon wrapping around me as I slowly began to stitch my life back together. Then one bright October morning, my phone buzzed with a new message. Not from my parents this time, but from Aunt Claire. "Hey kiddo, are you free for coffee this week? I have something I want to share with you." I stared at the message, my heart giving a small, hopeful lurch. Claire had always been my quiet champion, her warm, knowing smile, a small, steady light in the otherwise cold landscape of my family. We met at a small cafe near the waterfront, the air filled with the comforting scents of cinnamon and freshly ground espresso. Claire waved me over to a corner booth, her eyes crinkling in that familiar, comforting way as I slid into the seat across from her. "Hey you," she said, her voice a warm, familiar balm. "You look lighter." I smiled, my fingers wrapping around the warm ceramic mug in front of me. "I feel lighter." I admitted, a small, incredulous laugh slipping through my words. "It's strange, but I think I'm finally starting to feel like myself again." Claire's eyes shone with quiet pride, her hands folding neatly around her own cup. "I'm glad to hear that, Lily. I really am." She took a deep breath, her expression shifting slightly, a hint of something more serious settling into the lines around her eyes. "I wanted to talk to you about something," she said, her voice dropping to a more confidential tone. "Something I think you should know." I straightened in my seat, my pulse picking up slightly at the shift in her demeanor. "I've been meaning to tell you this for a while," she continued, her eyes locking onto mine, "but I didn't want to interfere. I didn't want to make things harder for you. But after that anniversary dinner, I just can't stay quiet anymore." I felt my breath catch slightly, the faint, familiar hum of anxiety stirring in my chest. "What is it, Claire?" She hesitated, her fingers tapping lightly against the side of her cup, her eyes flicking briefly to the window before settling back on my face. "Your parents, they've never been fair to you, Lily. I know you know that, but it's more than just favoritism. It's something deeper, something more deliberate." I frowned, confusion mingling with the growing unease in my chest. "What do you mean?" Claire sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly as if the weight of her words had already worn her down. "They've always put Vanessa first," she said, her voice tinged with a quiet, simmering anger I hadn't expected. "But it's not just about her being the golden child. They've actively chosen to push you aside to keep you small. I've seen it for years, and I should have said something sooner." I blinked, my mind scrambling to piece together the fragments of her words, the thin threads of half-formed memories weaving together into a darker, more troubling picture. Why, I whispered, my fingers tightening around the warm ceramic of my cup. Why would they do that? Claire hesitated again, her eyes darkening as she leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Because you threatened the narrative," she said, her words sharp and direct, cutting through the soft murmur of the cafe like a blade. Vanessa has always been their perfect, polished success story. The daughter they could show off, brag about, place on a pedestal. You were too much like them. Too independent, too strong-willed, too much of a reminder of the things they had to give up to raise her. The words landed like a series of small, sharp blows, each one driving a fresh crack into the carefully constructed image of my family that I had carried for so long. They resented you for that. Claire continued, her voice soft but unflinching, for being a reminder that they weren't perfect, that they had failed in some way. And so they pushed you aside, built Vanessa up at your expense, and convinced themselves that it was all for the best. I felt my breath catch my heart pounding painfully against my ribs as the truth of her words sank in, settling into my bones with a cold, unrelenting certainty. They never wanted me to stand out, I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. They never wanted me to be anything more than Vanessa's shadow. Claire reached across the table, her warm, calloused hand wrapping gently around mine. But you are more, Lily, she said, her eyes bright with fierce, unflinching certainty. You always have been. You just need to believe it. I closed my eyes, a slow, shuddering breath slipping through my clenched teeth as the weight of her words settled over me. For so long, I had believed the lie my parents had carefully constructed, that I was lesser, unworthy, a distant second in the family narrative. But now, with Claire's steady, unwavering gaze holding me together, I felt the first faint stirrings of something stronger. A fierce, defiant kind of hope, the kind that refuses to be silenced or overshadowed. I opened my eyes, my fingers tightening around Claire's hand, my pulse a steady, determined drumbeat in my ears. Thank you, I whispered, my voice trembling but sure. Thank you for seeing me. Claire smiled, a slow, radiant expression that warmed the cold, empty places in my chest. I always have Lily, she said, her voice a soft, steady anchor in the storm of my newfound clarity. And I always will. The days that followed my conversation with Claire felt like waking up in a different world, one where the air felt lighter, the colors sharper, and the silence in my apartment less oppressive. It was as if my life had been tilted, the shadows finally sliding off to reveal a brighter, more hopeful landscape. But of course, change doesn't come without resistance. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. I had just returned from a meeting with a potential client, a young couple looking to transform a rundown Victorian into a warm, inviting home for their growing family. The meeting had gone well, their eyes lighting up as I sketched out my vision for the space, my confidence building with each approving nod. I was still riding the high of that small personal victory when I noticed the silver Lexus parked in my driveway. Its sleek, polished frame an intruder against the cracked concrete and overgrown weeds. My parents stood on my front porch, my mother's thin, perfectly manicured fingers tapping nervously against the strap of her designer handbag. My father's arms crossed tightly over his chest, his jaw set in that familiar, unyielding line. I felt a cold, instinctive dread settle into my bones, the small, hopeful warmth that had begun to grow inside me flickering dangerously. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and stepped out of my car, the gravel crunching beneath my boots as I approached the house. Mom, Dad. I kept my voice steady, my eyes locking onto theirs as I crossed the short distance to the porch. What are you doing here? My mother's eyes flicked over me, her lips pressing into a thin, disapproving line as she took in my wind-blown hair, my mud-splattered boots, the faint traces of paint still clinging to my jeans from a recent project. We need to talk, my father said, his voice low and tightly controlled, his eyes narrowing slightly as he met my gaze. Inside, I felt my jaw clench, the muscles in my neck tightening as I fought back the instinct to step back, to retreat, to hide. Instead, I forced my feet to move, climbing the steps to my own front door, my keys jangling softly in my hand as I unlocked it. They stepped inside, my mother's nose wrinkling slightly as she took in the cluttered, colorful chaos of my living room. A stark contrast to the cold, curated perfection of their own home. I closed the door behind them, my pulse a slow, steady drumbeat in my ears as I turned to face them. What is this about? I asked, my voice sharper than I had intended, the words cutting through the thick, uncomfortable silence that had settled over the room. My father cleared his throat, his gaze flicking to my mother before settling back on me, his jaw tightening even further. We're worried about you, he said, the words landing like a poorly aimed punch, their weight more confusing than comforting. I felt a bitter, incredulous laugh bubble up in my throat, my fingers tightening around the edge of the armchair beside me. Worried about me, I echoed my voice tinged with a sharp, disbelieving edge. Since when? My mother's eyes darted to the side, her lips pressing together even more tightly as my father's jaw flexed, his nostrils flaring slightly. "Don't be dramatic, Lily." He snapped, his voice taking on that familiar, condescending tone that had silenced me for years. "You've cut us off, ignored our calls, refused to come to family events. Your mother is worried sick." I felt my pulse quicken, my chest tightening as the words crashed over me, the familiar, suffocating weight of their disappointment settling around my shoulders like an old, unwanted coat. But this time I refused to buckle beneath it. I took a deep, steadying breath, my fingers flexing around the worn, familiar fabric of the armchair, my gaze locking onto my father's unflinching. "You mean Vanessa is worried?" I said, my voice steady but sharp, the words cutting through the thick, stifling air like a blade. "You're not here for me. You're here because my silence has disrupted your carefully curated narrative. Because my absence is harder to explain than my presence." My mother's head snapped up, her eyes wide and startled, her carefully controlled mask slipping for a brief, satisfying moment. My father's face darkened, his jaw clenching even tighter as a low, angry growl slipped through his teeth. "Don't twist this, Lily," he spat, his hands curling into tight fists at his sides. "We've always been there for you. We've always supported you." I felt a fresh wave of bitter laughter rise in my chest, my pulse a steady pounding drumbeat in my ears. "No," I said, my voice trembling, but clear, my eyes locking onto his. "You haven't. You've ignored me, overlooked me, treated me like an afterthought for my entire life. You've made it clear time and time again that Vanessa is the daughter you're proud of, that she's the one who matters." My mother's lips trembled, her fingers twisting tightly around the strap of her handbag, her eyes filling with a familiar, manipulative sheen of tears. "But we love you," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly, the words landing like a cold, calculated slap. "You're our daughter, our family." I felt a slow, cold wave of anger sweep through me, my hands tightening around the armchair as I met her tear-filled gaze. "No," I said, my voice sharper, more certain than I had ever heard it before. "I'm done playing this role. I'm done being the forgotten daughter, the shadow to Vanessa's spotlight. I deserve better than this." I took a slow, steady breath, my pulse slowing as the weight of my own words settled over me, solid and unbreakable. "If you really cared about me," I continued, my voice low but steady, "you would have seen me. You would have valued me. You would have made space for me in your carefully curated family portrait." I took a step back, my chest heaving with the force of my own long-suppressed rage, my heart pounding with a fierce, unfamiliar sense of freedom. "But you didn't. And I'm done pretending that's okay." I reached for the door, my fingers trembling slightly as I twisted the cool brass knob, pulling it open with a sharp, satisfying creak. "I think it's time you left," I said, my voice steady, my eyes unblinking as I met their stunned, disbelieving stares. "I have a life to build, one that doesn't include being your afterthought." They hesitated for a long, agonizing moment, their eyes locked onto mine, a silent, wordless plea hanging in the air between us. But I didn't falter. I held my ground. My fingers still wrapped tightly around the doorknob, my pulse a slow, steady drum beat in my ears. And then, without another word, they turned and stepped through the doorway, their footsteps echoing softly against the cracked, uneven pavement as they crossed the porch and disappeared down the driveway. I closed the door behind them, the cool, quiet air of my apartment settling around me like a protective, comforting shield. For the first time in my life, I felt truly, undeniably seen. Story 2, Venue's Open Doors, throwing my meticulously placed place cards around the wood floor as the October wind rips across the hills. Before they can fly away, I seize them and place them all back on the burgundy tablecloth. I grin as my fingertips lightly touch Adam's name, which is matched with mine at the sweetheart table. I'm going to be Mrs. Adam Chen in 3 weeks. The amber and rust-colored leaves outside are illuminated by golden sunshine that filters through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the ideal setting for our wedding in the fall. I take another thing off my clipboard and inspect it. The table is put up. Let's go on to the mock-up of the centerpiece. My phone is pinging. The message is from an unknown number, however, the delivery tomorrow is most likely flawed. I am really looking forward to your big day. I appreciate the invitation. A picture of my Save the Day card is below it. The one in the aspen grove where Adam and I were laughing, our hands clasped together. I purposefully didn't send one individual the identical card. I lose my grip on my clipboard. Paper strewn on hardwood flooring reverberates throughout the deserted space. Above the message, I look at the sender's name. My sister's name, Sierra, seems hazy as I'm overcome with recollections. The terrible mail, the scholarship letter. When I approached her, she smirked. Everything is always yours. I simply wanted you to understand what it's like to lose. Hello, lovely. Brought you your favorite pumpkin spice latte. I turn around. Adam is standing in the entrance. I have 2 glasses of coffee. When he sees my face, his warm, familiar smile fades. After glancing between us, the wedding planner stealthily leads her employees out the door. Click to close behind them. Has my sister been invited to our wedding? I speak in a steady, controlled tone. My hands then start to tremble. Adam's smile vanishes entirely. His gaze flickers to the ground and then returns to me. Every characteristic is etched with guilt. Listen, Marissa. She is the only sister you have. 10 years have passed. The remarks struck like a punch to the body. I take hold of the edge of the closest table and examine myself. You were aware. You were aware of her actions. That was so long ago. Individuals evolve. I can still remember our 3rd date. He heard it all from the small Italian eatery where I eventually opened. How Sierra ruined my scholarship to a $75,000 design school. How she sent the committee a phony email requesting a withdrawal from my account. How she ruined the career I had planned for years. Above all, though I recall what happened next, my voice, despite my tears, it was fierce. We're done if you ever attempt to reintroduce her into my life. And Adam's answer. He put his hand over mine. I would never treat you that way. Promise, show me your phone. Before I can stop them, the words are released. What your mobile device? Adam, right now. After a moment of hesitation, he passes it over. He still uses the same password. My birthday. I go through months of talks and access his texts. My stomach churns. Sierra's messages. When she sees you there, she will pardon both of us, to my parents. I believe it's time for us to assist them in making sense of their answer. Adam, you're such a nice dude. Marissa will appreciate this. One day. My breath catches at the enormity of the treachery. This has been planned for months. Each and every one. I remove my engagement ring by sliding it off. Tiny rainbows are scattered over the arena as the diamond captures the sunlight. The contract is on the table. I set the ring next to it. Please, Marissa. Adam's tone falters. I believed I was aiding in your family's recovery. I give him a glance. Take a close look at him. It was the first time I saw him clearly. Instead of protecting me, the man I believed would do so had plotted with those who had harmed me the most. Nothing needs to be healed. I speak in a firm but quiet tone. Due to the absence of a family, no more. I pass him. I walked steadily on the wood floors. I don't turn around, but he calls after me. As soon as I step outside, the scent of pine and fall foliage fills the air, reminding me of the day for all time. I discovered that the most profound betrayals can occasionally be disguised as acts of love. With a final resonant thud, the venue doors behind me closed. 3 days later, the floor of my studio apartment is covered in canceled vendor contracts, which are scattered like leaves in the fall. Letterhead is spotless on the floor. The photographer's simple logo and the caterer's elegant script are both marked with bold red letters that have been canceled. Once more, my phone buzzes. Adam missed 27 calls and Mom missed 14. You're not like this, my love. As I fold another contract, Mom's most recent voicemail plays. You were brought up to believe in second chances by us. Another white lily arrangement is knocked down by a delivery man. Among the flowers is Mom's message. Family is forgiving, my love. By the window, the flowers join 3 other identical arrangements. My stomach is churning from their smell. In the corner hangs my wedding gown. The dawn light catches the exquisite lace. $2,000 in unfulfilled promises. Wrapped in silk and a tulle. I walked away from it. But its presence fills the space like another person watching, waiting. Dad's voice crackles through my phone. Speaker, honey, we've all been conversing. When Sierra was younger, she committed a mistake. I've made a lot of myself, for heaven's sake. His well-known laugh irritates my nerves. Do you recall when I didn't tell your mother about the '68 Mustang? While Dad's message is still playing, Adam sends an SMS. Your folks have been meeting with me. They know why I took this action. Why are you unable to take a picture? At Romano's, Adam, Mom, Dad, and Sierra crammed themselves into a booth. Our go-to place for a romantic evening. There is a conspiratorial warmth in their features. Mom's shoulder holds Sierra's head. Adam extends his arm behind my sister. Cozy and well-known. 3 weeks ago is the timestamp. My coffee mug breaks on the wooden floor as it slides out of my hands. The canceled contracts are soaked with a dark liquid that bleeds through the paper, warping the signatures. Sierra sends an email. Next. The subject line is flickering. I've evolved. Give me a chance. I ignore it. Everyone can be punished for 10 years. My flat is filled with Mom's voice once more. I'm a better parent than this. Our family is characterized by forgiveness. The message ends. Another starts. Adam has the support of the entire family. Your future is being dictated by the past. It's also unhealthy. The front door makes a clicking sound. Armed with takeout bags and that ferocious expression she gets when she's prepared for battle, Elaine enters. I had reinforcements. I won't leave until we've resolved all of this, she says, holding up a bottle of wine. She points to the paper as the carnage envelops me. You can't stay here with me. Your important client meeting has already been rescheduled for tomorrow. She leaves the bags on the counter in my kitchen. It's being covered by John. Once more, my phone rings. The screen is filled with Adam's face. Before I can respond, Elaine grabs it, turning off the phone. Oh, and I remember that. She reaches into her pocket and takes out a business card. Do you recall Caroline from accounting? Her aunt's family experienced a similar situation. She enjoys talking, if you're curious. My apartment is filled with the aroma of tomato sauce and garlic. Elena unpacks containers, resisting the overpowering sweetness of her mother's lilies. Her actions. Accurate. With a purpose. She doesn't inquire about my well-being. Doesn't insist on specifics. Merely brings order to the chaos. One container of takeout at a time. Through the open window, I can hear my neighbor Tom's voice. Elaine, the last box you loaded into your car. Does his place need anything else moved? That's all. Elaine returns the call. Regards, Tom. While they were busy meeting and messaging me, the last bits of my life with Adam were packed and labeled. Again, I was making my own decision. Unprotected and alone. Check it out now. 3 years condensed into cardboard boxes. My gaze drifts to my laptop to the email draft I've been avoiding. After observing my gaze, Elaine remarks, "You don't have to do this tonight." I do indeed. The wedding cancellation email takes shape. Each word measured, stripped of blame or bitterness due to unforeseen circumstances. The wedding of Marissa Caldwell and Adam Chen has been canceled. All gifts will be returned with our sincere gratitude for your kind wishes. Send 148 visitors. 148 gifts to return, each one demanding a special letter. Each message a reminder of what I've lost, what was taken. The wedding dress. Watches. Quiet. Accusing. Help me get it down. The final syllable causes my voice to break. Elaine puts her wine glass down. We all work together to remove the garment from the hanger. Tiny rainbows are scattered over my walls when the beaded bodice catches the light. We put it in its clothing bag. Be cautious not to catch the fragile cloth. Tomorrow at 10, the consignment store will open. I say, as soon as we both understand without using words, Elaine nods and closes the bag while putting her hand in mine and squeezing. Underneath the strewn contracts is a leather-bound diary. Its pages are old and dog-eared. My throat gets constricted. Even though Adam vowed to keep my heart safe, I couldn't bring myself to show him the scholarship diary, which included every detail of Sierra's treachery written in my enraged handwriting. The last post terminates in the middle of a phrase, as though I couldn't stand to write another word at the age of 17. However, there is more to that tale. There was so much more that nobody knew that Adam was unaware of. I shut the notebook, reposition it beneath the papers. There are certain truths that must wait until their time. Elaine gives me a spaghetti container. She had a kind yet resolute look. Bite by bit. One package at a time. One day at a time. We'll overcome this. Beyond my window, the trees being whipped by the October wind, removing any dead leaves, allowing space for the growth of something new. The sound of my heels clicking reverberates across Anderson Design Group's glass lobby. Every action is measured and intentional. At the entryway, I stop and notice my reflection. Dark circles have appeared beneath my eyes 3 weeks after my wedding preparations were postponed, but I keep my head up and my spine straight. Then I spot them. Sierra is sitting on one of the leather guest seats, wringing a tissue between her fingers, and my mother is standing next to the registration counter wearing her trademark pearl necklace. The identical fingers that 10 years ago penned the phony withdrawal email. My mother, Marissa, comes forward with her arms out. We must speak, my love. I continue to stare at the brush while I push the elevator button. Please, steel doors. Sierra's voice cracks. I traveled this far. All I want to do is put things right. There is silence across the first level. Janet at reception has stopped feigning to write, and I can feel my coworkers' eyes on us, their morning chats halted in mid-sentence. Until you listen, we won't be going. I was sent to my room without dinner because of the customary steel in my mother's voice. I asked why Sierra was never held accountable. In 10 minutes, I have a client meeting. My voice comes forth. Steady and competent. Additionally, both of you are intruding. Intruding Sierra stands with tears in her eyes. Janet, I'm your sister. I look at our front desk agent. Kindly give security a call. You're not serious. My mom becomes red in the face. I'm a better parent than this. Indeed. You taught me to smile at family get-togethers while Sierra smirked about destroying my future and to remain silent when she hurt me. To act as though nothing was wrong. I no longer work for you, even though the words flow out cool and precise. This is where I work. Over the phone, Janet's hand lingers. Must I indeed? I look into my mother's startled eyes. Give them a call. Within minutes, the security personnel show up. Expert, be discreet. As my coworkers hustle about, suddenly engrossed in their phones and coffee cups, they take my family out. Is everything all right? I turned to see our senior partner, Marcus Chen, standing in the doorway of his office watching. There is something in his face that I have never seen before. Show respect. Indeed, sir. I'm sorry about the interruption. He gives a head shake. Never say you're sorry for upholding your professional limits. Let's go on to the Riverside Initiative. The day is filled with design reviews and client meetings. I immerse myself in color schemes and furniture arrangements, allowing the comfortable labor to calm my thoughts and steady my hands. However, a familiar automobile is waiting for me as I arrive into my apartment complex that evening. Adam leaves. His expression was thundering. How could your own mother and sister be taken away by security? I tightened my hold on my portfolio. How could you spend months meeting with them behind my back? They are your relatives. They claimed that you exaggerate everything and have always been theatrical about Sierra. He strokes his hair with his hands. I wondered if I could just gather everyone in one area. The truth strikes like a punch to the body. Marissa, you've been allowing them to tell you their version of me all along, no. The last sound of the word is harsh. You are no longer able to bargain. For years, my family has been denying my narrative, and you choose to trust them rather than me. We're finished. I move by him and head for my building. His voice breaks. Just talk to me, please. Elaine is waiting for me in my flat with champagne and takeout when the security code sounds as I enter. Outside, I saw his automobile. She yanks me into an intense embrace. Until he leaves, I won't be going. As the hot twilight descends upon us, we relax on my terrace and take up pad 2. Elaine tells me about her aunt, who 20 years ago severed ties with her controlling sister. It was the best choice she ever made. People who share your DNA might sometimes be considered relatives. My phone is buzzing. Marcus texted. It's been 15 years since I last spoke to my brother. His decision, his defeat. Boundaries may never be understood by certain people unless they are enforced. I'll see you tomorrow. I discover the scholarship acceptance letter in my old diary later that evening while I'm by myself in my bedroom. The design school's attractive letterhead, the words that once had all the promise. On the basis of an exceptional portfolio and recommendation letters, full tuition and stipend are granted. 1 week before to Sierra sending the phony withdrawal email on April 15, 2014, my fingers traced the date. For the first time since I found out she had invited me to my wedding, I destroyed everything. I started crying. Deep, agonizing cries that reverberate off the walls of my flat, not the silent tears I've been holding within. I weep for the young lady who had to start again in her profession after 6 years, for the trust I will never be able to truly offer again for the family I believed I had. I open my laptop when the tears eventually cease. The contact page for the design school illuminates on the screen. I start typing, my fingers hovering over the keys. To whom it may concern. I'm writing in reference to an April 2014 email claiming a fraudulent withdrawal from my account. Within hours, the response is received. They still possess the documents, the timestamps demonstrating that it wasn't me, and the email headers displaying Sierra's IP address. I create a fresh subject line for my email. The real reason I left the parents of the design school recipients, Adam Sierra, Aunt Sarah, Uncle Jim, Grandma Rose, and Mom and Dad. I move my finger over the send button. Retaliation isn't always the truth. Sometimes all it takes is taking off the mask from a deception that has persisted for too long. In my studio apartment's darkness, my laptop's screen illuminates. With 10 years worth of evidence strewn all over my desk, it feels impossible to fall asleep even if it is 2:47 a.m. Journal entries, scholarship. Records the initial email of congratulations and the fraudulent withdrawal that Sierra made from my account. Part of the narrative they don't want to hear is told by each component. When I completed all the paperwork and began mailing out letters one at a time, the sun had already risen. The following morning, I opened a new document and started typing. Just the facts, without any sentimental phrasing. Won a $75,000 scholarship at the Pacific Design Institute in 2015. Sierra used the shared family computer to view my email on March 12, 2015. The scholarship committee received a phony withdrawal email on March 13, 2015. The scholarship was withdrawn on March 14, 2015. Awarded to a different applicant. Memories come to mind when my fingers linger over the keys. When I arrived at orientation, the committee was perplexed. When I questioned Sierra, she smirked, but my parents dismissed it as a case of sisters being sisters. I include their answers over the years. You were too sensitive about that scholarship issue all the time, Mom. Sierra was only a teenager, Dad. Give it up. You're very theatrical, Sierra. It's a long time ago. Next, Adam's recent text to Sierra and my family. When she sees you there, she will also pardon us both. Mom, I know just how to deal with Marissa's obstinacy with her father. Everything will be resolved at the wedding. The truth seems differently. Naked in white and black. There's no need for drama. In their own words, just 10 years of gaslighting were revealed. The mouse makes my finger shake. My parents, Adam, Sierra, and other important family members who have been putting pressure on me to get back together are on the list of recipients. The story they have created will be destroyed with a single click. I hit the transmit button. Within minutes, the responses begin. The speaker roars with my father's voicemail. The filthy laundry of this household is not for public consumption. On Facebook, Sierra's video message appears. She pleads for pardon, but her words seem empty as her mascara runs. I was doing something I didn't comprehend. The same justification wrapped in new tears. The work receptionist texts me and my phone buzzes. Adam has flowers here. As instructed by you, security turned him away. The extended family group chat is bombed by Mom. Marissa is not feeling good. She is manipulating things in order to harm her sister. Please offer your prayers for her recovery. However, something changes. I haven't heard from Patricia in years, but she finally speaks. In college, I think Marissa Lucy did the same to me. This family has a history of justifying abuse. I received a private message from cousin Rachel. You were being theatrical according to your mother. I said nothing. I apologize. When Uncle Jim took my fortune, they treated me the same way. You're not by yourself. Unexpectedly, my boss calls. Today, take a day off. And you remember the proposal you suggested for the mountain resort, you own it. Used this energy to produce something lovely. I was in my place that day getting ready for another challenge. There will undoubtedly be more. But for the first time since calling off the wedding, I slept through the night without taking any medicine. No nightmares of Adam's treachery or Sierra's smile, just still darkness. After the turmoil has passed, Dad texts me the next morning. I was unaware of the extent to which this impacted your career. No demands, no excuses. His assurance cracked for the first time. I go to work without answering. Sierra's extensive social media post about family reconciliation disappears without explanation at the office next morning. When Kelly from accounting stops by my desk, the remarks urging me to forgive her vanish. Adam attempted to send further flowers. I gave them back myself. She gives my shoulder a squeeze. The word no is incomprehensible to certain guys. Elaine later sends me a snapshot from Marcus, a friend of ours. Adam acknowledged his mistake at last. Said that rather than acting as a family counselor, he ought to have respected Marissa's limits. I immerse myself in the designs of the mountain resorts. Ironically, I created a venue in the Cascades that is quite similar to the site of my canceled wedding. This time, however, every choice comes easily. Don't second-guess yourself. No compromising. My design's glass walls reflected the trees around it. The foundation is anchored with local stone. Mountain breezes might find refuge in a subterranean fire pit. Every component is precisely how I had imagined it. A reminder about wedding preparation pings through my computer. The big day is 3 months away. I open the folder. A cursor lingering over vendor contracts and years' worth of Pinterest boards. I erase it all with 3 clicks. It feels good to be empty, like putting down a weight I had forgotten I was carrying at last. Mom has sent me another message and my phone lights up. This can yet be fixed, my love. Family is the most important thing. Without replying, I put the phone face down. She is mistaken. It is not just about family. The truth is paramount. My design sketches are painted in amber and gold hues by the morning light, the exact hues that were meant to characterize my wedding. Now light the way ahead, not the route they choose to take me. the one I can now walk alone since I'm strong enough. The screensaver on my laptop changes to a picture from the site visit last week. On the mountain overlook I stand. My hair is being whipped by the wind. For the first time in months, a smile sprang to my eyes. The foundation begins to take shape behind me. Every stone is precisely where I put it. Some people dedicate their entire careers to repairing damaged foundations. I'm creating something fresh and authentic. However, a little voice murmurs. When those who have wronged you reject your truth, what happens? It feels like the first raindrop before a storm when Dad texts. Sierra kept quiet instead of crying. The wedding rings that Adam said would bind me to a life of deception are still in his possession someplace. On my screen, the ideas for the mountain resort come to life. Firm and accurate. Allow the storm to arrive. Now I'm prepared. I prioritize seeing the clients and completing the design first. Second, I concentrate on my tranquility and myself. An entire week has gone by in this manner. A week later, the dinner invitation to talk about moving ahead as a family is still on my kitchen counter. It is made of thick cream paper with gold text embossed on it. Below Mother's calligraphy flows in flawless cursive evoking Marcel's The French Eatery, where I celebrated graduating from college. I started by designing awards for each significant milestone. My phone is buzzing. Aunt Catherine left another voicemail. We're concerned about this rift too, sweetie. Next, delete a text message from Dad Lands. Today, one of my major clients inquired about you. If they heard about any family trouble, it would be shameful. Adam's email alert catches my attention as I put the phone in my handbag. Everyone is picking a side. Marissa, allow me to assist in resolving this. The timing indicates that he sent it shortly after Sierra's handwritten letter in which she promised to make things right arrived. If it weren't so oppressive, their synchronization would be amazing. Alan agreed to accompany me to the event when I phoned her. I began preparing because I was prepared to confront them all. Alan straightens the collar of my blazer and adds, "You don't have to do this." Later that night, we stand outside the cobblestone courtyard raking fallen leaves under Marcel's October breeze. Instead, we could have pizza. No, I slipped the portfolio under my arm and smoothed it. They must be clear about what they want me to forgive. I can see them at our regular table via the glass. Pearl's father in his power suit and her mother, Sierra, and something delicate and peach that gives her a more youthful, fragile appearance. Adams had likely been planning the ideal family scene when he was near my father's. Elaine snaps up behind their head as I force open the hefty wooden door. At the side of a highway, Marissa's mother partially stands up, her face displaying a hint of bewilderment. Remember, we weren't anticipating my terms. The chair at the head of the table is my choice. Other than Sierra, it's not where I usually go. Elaine sits next to a silent guardian. My dear, Dad leans forward, grinning as he negotiates a deal. As a family, we're here to heal. Maybe your friend could. Elaine remains. I carefully arrange the documents in the portfolio when I open it. Let's begin by defining exactly what we're going ahead from, as that is the topic of our discussion. White linen with email headers strewn throughout it. Technical evidence of sabotage by Sierra. Stamp a nail in their denial's coffin each time. The letter from the scholarship committee verifying the withdrawal was obtained from an unapproved source. That's in the past. Mom gives a hand wave. Sierra served only as my diary. I set the book with the leather binding next to the emails. I spent 6 years starting again in my profession. Every failure, every chance, lost. Each time I was asked to justify my decision to drop out of design school. In her lap, Sierra's fingers twitch. Adam looks at the notebook as if it were a potential bite. And this. Sliding over the table is the finished manuscript. A thorough financial evaluation of the effects of student loans and lost income. I couldn't take on clients without the necessary qualifications, therefore I wouldn't have required them. It came to 23,412,000. Dad's glass of wine stops halfway to his lips. That is, Sierra's tone falters. I didn't think it would make much of a difference. You didn't, of course. The words come out. Be calm, steady. Not one of you did. You're also at ease and demanding because of this. I forget and forgive. We can fix it. Across the table, Adam reaches. Your parents might be able to provide the funds. What could you do? I could. Jackets and eyes. Each phrase plots further behind my back. Break the one rule that I made very clear. Mother uses her napkin to dab at her lips. Now, if you simply, Marissa. I use these terminologies. I try to sit more erect, adopting my dad's boardroom stance. Not negotiable. As I go over each topic, there is silence. No connection to Sierra. My parents unquestionably respect my boundaries. Adam was gone from my life for good. We are family, though, Sierra murmurs. No. Like a gavel, the word lands. Family values, limits. Family members look out for one another. At their own wedding, family members don't plot to surprise someone. It's unfair. Adam tightens his jaw. By totally ignoring what she told you, we were attempting to be helpful. His outcry is cut short by Elaine's gentle voice. Some assistance. I collect the papers and place them back in the portfolio. I'm not requesting your understanding or consent. I'm telling you what I've decided. Elizabeth. Dad warns by using his mother's first name. Give her time to finish. Your point has been made. Mom's tone falters, but eventually for sure. Betrayal is not remedied by time. I get up and Elaine gets up next to me. It just shows who is prepared to regain trust and who expects to be handed it. Please. Sierra tries to grasp my hand. I take a step back. I don't mean any of you any harm. The words have a specific, profound source. However, I refuse to give up my tranquility in order to preserve the appearance of family unity. No more. Menus are displayed by the maitre d'. I give a headshake. We're not going to remain. As I leave, I hear my mother take a weak breath. Dad sighed deeply. However, my steps are steady. As Elaine and I go out into the courtyard, the smell of wood smoke and changing leaves fills the air, and the fall breeze catches my hair. Are you all right? She queries. I glance back at the family tableau, now irreparably broken through Marcel's warm windows. Peace isn't nearly the peculiar lightness in my chest. Not quite there, but it's more like that than I've felt in a long time. Yes. My gaze leaves the eatery. I believe I am, at last. And with these few actions, I was able to fully recover, a year later. My new office's floor-to-ceiling windows let in plenty of sunlight, which catches the brass nameplate on my desk. Beside it, with its crystal edges casting rainbow prisms over my laptop screen, is the Mountain Retreat Project Award, which was created by main designer Marissa Caldwell. The words still catch in my throat after a year. Sometimes a year has passed since I left a wedding, a family, and a lifetime of attempting to fit their wishes. I run my fingertips over the award's engraved lettering. Superiority in environmentally friendly design. I don't miss the irony. I want it for the exact mountain location where I had redone my wedding after Adam's treachery destroyed my world. From the fragments, I had constructed something more robust. Marissa. Jenny from the front desk sticks her head in. This is your 200th student of design. Not the official family portraits, but the framed pictures on my desk I straighten. Every home, according to my mother, should include pictures of my chosen family. I hiked the Pacific Crest with Elaine. Yes, I did remember it from years ago when I looked in the mirror. As she settles into the chair opposite from me, she introduces herself as Sophie Martinez. I appreciate your thinking of me for the internship. Her brilliance is evident from her portfolio, but what really stands out to me is the quiver in her voice when she talks about her family. That determines my choice. Your decision to study design is not supported by them. I speak in a soft voice. Sophie's gaze expands. How did you... The appearance is familiar to me. I looked out the window, allowing her time to gather her thoughts. Additionally, my family had very certain notions of what success should entail. I'm supposed to study business. The words flow forth. According to Dad, design is only a pastime and not a legitimate vocation. I keep getting ads for accounting programs from Mom. My father has texted me and my phone buzzes. Cheers to your birthday. Marissa, there is no pressure. I was just considering you. That statement would have been accompanied with conditions a year ago. He is currently studying slowly. I ignore the alert and concentrate on Sophie. Leo, tell me about your favorite book project. I watch her come to life for the next hour as she talks about her plans. Before she goes, her eyes flame with the same terror I had when she was her age. I give her a letter of offer for an internship along with another item, a Caldwell-designed scholarship brochure. I assure her there's no need for family references, only skill and motivation. I go around the finished mountain hideaway that night, where the bridal altar would have been the Douglas fir beams are painted in amber light by sunset. The cascades are now framed by a wall of glass. The eye is drawn upward by the vast room's lofty ceiling until the mountain itself appears to be a part of it. Once more, my phone buzzes. My mother's message. This week's third for her. Sierra is back in town, sweetie. She is so different now. I might remove it before I'm done. Some borders no longer require justification. I open the lowest desk drawer in my workplace. It's just where I put the journal from a decade ago, the day I read it to my therapy group for the first time. Every detail of Sierra's treachery, every contemptuous statement from my parents, and every dime and ambition the scholarship would have provided are all documented in its pages. More important, though, is the most recent journal next to it. A distinct type of architecture is mapped on its pages. The roadmap for rebuilding my life according to my own terms. Notes from counseling sessions where I gained confidence in my intuition. I wrote letters, but I never mailed them. They turned their rage into motivation to move on. The week after I return my engagement ring, the initial design ideas for this mountain getaway are sketched. I can still remember my final therapy appointment. When you learn that Adam is engaged, how do you feel? Even I had been astonished by the reality. Nothing. He is now the owner of his decisions, as though mine are mine. I'm pulled out of the memories by a knock on the door. The cleaning staff is here. I've also learned to set boundaries. I finish work at 6 o'clock to make time for the weekly support group that I now assist in running. I see a familiar silver SUV in the parking lot as I make my way to my car. The old Marissa, my mother, would have turned around and allowed herself to be forced into yet another tiresome discussion about her responsibilities to her family. However, Marissa's wedding preparations fell through. I take out my phone and start typing. I'm not available for a conversation. Please be mindful of my boundaries. Easy. Unambiguous. No explanation is required. I pass the little design school on my way home where I'll make the scholarship announcements the following month. For those who dare to dream greater than their family, there are 10 full rides. Anticipations. Every time I look over the application form, I smile. When you quit living for other people, tell us what you want to build. 20 minutes later, the aroma of my condo's distinctive combination of lavender and pine greets me. Not the artificialities my mom always liked. The entrance is lined with pictures documenting the transformation over the last year and the community center's first design award instruction. I spent the holiday with people who don't demand my submission, but instead applaud my accomplishments. I lean on the counter in the kitchen and pour a glass of wine. Through the windows, the sunset is visible. I painted my walls in colors of possibilities, positioning myself just for this moment. I created this area specifically for myself. A sudden calm descends upon me. Some people build families all their lives. Others concentrate on constructing walls. I created something more robust, a foundation independent of acceptance from others, a life that is truly and unwaveringly mine. The most robust structures emerge from the most lucid vision, as I learned at the Mountain Retreat Project. At last, my vision is clear. I am the creator of my own legacy, the architect of my own work, and the constructor of my own future. And that cannot be taken away.